Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have heaps of results over the last couple of weekends, a bunch of VGCSs. We also had the Bushiroad Spring Fest in San Gabriel, and we also have some Japanese results as well. So we're going to go through all of them today. If you guys need any coaching for the BSF season, my link is in the bottom right hand corner. Feel free to hit me up and we can get started. So starting off, we have Crow's Nest VGCS. Crow's absolutely killing it with like all these, tournaments with Kingslayer cards. He's just doing God's work in his community. Really cool to see all these results that he's putting out. So a big shout out to him. Also, if you guys don't know already, this is all available on Fuzzy's website, vg-paradox.com. Feel free to search this all up and it's all there. Listen, everything. So yeah, the breakdown 3 Chronojet as we expect. Chronojet is the newish guy on the block for the English format. So immediate, impact into the metagame for standard. So 3 Jet, 3 Eva. Eva is the best deck, before Jet even existed. 1 Lutetia and 1 ARKHITE. ARKHITE is pretty interesting. Obviously the other half of Eva, so very cool to see that there is an ARKHITE sneaking in. And going into the top 4, so first and second both taken by Jet, so Matthew Ahn and Jordan Cook taken first and second. Third was Jalen Quick with the ARKHITE, and in fourth place was Nick Harp with the Lutetia. So looking at the ARKHITE deck, this is probably one of the decks that, seems a little bit odd, and it's not, the Jets, the Evas. So very cool to see, people playing their, favorites in these tournaments. Very cool FFR you got there for the ARKHITE. And playing this grade 3, so when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, if your auto zone is 2 or more, draw a card. If you drew a card, choose a card from your hand and put it into Salt. So lots of utility in this grade 3. And obviously, you have your Bulba Mines. These are all searchable as well. You play your Combine Rushes, you ditch them early, you play your Monster Order. And very interesting that this player also ran one of the Eva Order as well, having access to removal as well. Very cool to see. Very innovative deck list. And then going into the Spring Fest side of things. So this is the teams tournament for California. So first place was No Ride, playing the most meta team comp you could probably bring. So this is the first Spring Fest where Chronojet is legal. So first place brought a Jet, Youthberg, Eva. Second was Akari, Akase Fans with Overlord, Jet, and Eva. Third was Based Department with Eva, Jet, and Lutetia. And then fourth, Vector with Jet, Youthberg, and Overlord. Pretty much every single one of these decks is what you expect to see, These are the decks that you are expecting every, meta relevant team would be bringing. Well, teams that are, playing meta relevant decks. These are the type of decks that you're expecting, your Jets, your Evas, your Youthbergs, like even put Minerva in there. Lutetia is still good. Overlord is good, especially with Ardor Hatchet Dragon. As you can see, these are the decks that you are, expecting to see in the top tables. And then, funnily enough, I'm not actually going to look at any of these, top 4 decks, because these are like, very common decks that we see. And, I've done, I think, nearly every single comprehensive guide on nearly all of these. Lutetia I haven't done, and I think that's in the books at the moment. So, yeah, feel free to, keep an eye out. I think I will be releasing a Lutetia one very soon. But there in the top 8, there was a pretty spicy list, and it is a Lucia list. So big shout out to Fuzzy for getting this information. Obviously, the top 8 breakdown wasn't available, but very cool to see Lucia in the top 8. Teams are bringing it, and teams are, testing this particular deck into the format. I think this deck has a lot of potential. I think it's just missing one thing. And pretty much it makes this deck really strong, similar to like, PBO, Overlord. It was missing a PR. This deck needs a PR, and then, this deck might actually be super top tier. But very cool to see that, this player decided to use the Luxual Songster. One of the key things that Lucia, well, at least maybe not this build, but some of the other Lucia builds, is that you want to try to get rid of your board, right? Get rid of your board, and then that way you're able to set up with Lucia a little bit easier, instead of trying to force intercept your rear guards, or force your opponent to attack into rear guards, and then sometimes you have like open back row or occupied back row, and it gets a little bit awkward. So putting this behind a Rising Dragon actually makes that column super big, right? Let's just say you check a crit, you put it on the other side, and then you make sure that this on hit boosted attack hits, and then you clear your board, clear the 2 boosters, and you start intercepting as well. Very, very cool deck. Playing 3 Breathing Dragons as well and 3 Falcate, and maxing on the counter charger. So really wanting to see that at any point in the game. I think that's a pretty cool inclusion, but I think the fact that you need to see counter charges early, like that's, I don't know. I think this card is nice as the game progresses, but you don't actively need to find the grade 3. But otherwise, everything else is pretty cool. Opting to run the front as well instead of the draws. Interesting choice. I feel that this deck is lacking a bit of hand, so I think draws sometimes might be a little bit better, but sometimes you want quality over quantity of guard. But yeah, very cool Lucia list. And then moving on to V Premium. So this was a bit of a surprise, as we expect, you expect to see maidens, and I think 3 out of the 4 teams brought maiden. So first place was AJJC, bringing Malkuth Melek, 1 Steam Maiden and a Luard, and then OT2P, so OT to pass I'm guessing, bringing maidens, Astropod and Maelstrom. Third place was X1 with Altmile, Chaos Breaker, and Thavas, a very obscure lineup. And then fourth was We Are Water, but each of the W's are 2 V's. Very, very innovative with Maidens, Leopold, and Astropod. The 4th team is like one of the teams where, you can bring 2, super meta picks. So in the Maiden and the Leopold, and the 3rd pick can be like, your Luards, your Ange, your Astropods. But like looking at the X1 team, bringing 3 really obscure, picks. Thavas maybe not too obscure, but the other 2, Altmile and Chaos Breaker, very, very interesting to see. But sometimes you get a little bit lucky, and it's a team's format, so sometimes one of your teammates lose, and then one, sacks to the moon, and then the other one plays pretty average, and you get dubs, right? And then you kind of change those roles as rounds progress. So very cool to see different decks that isn't completely maiden and completely, Leopold, and then seeing like meta trends to see that, 3 decks are more overrepresented. Like, for example, if you saw Standard, there was a lot of Jet, a lot of Eva, a lot of Youthberg, but here, a little mix of everything. Very, very cool. Some of the lists, so Malkuth Melek, the first place list, opting to run, 4/4 line of Malkuth, 1 Feather Palace, and everything else is kind of like, abusing the Protect 2. Pretty interesting list, not gonna lie. But otherwise, most of this, I haven't actually played much of Malkuth Melek personally, but I think in this particular meta, if you're playing into Maiden, then it might actually be a good call, just because, your intercepts are pretty big, and sometimes, you don't really need to push too far, right? So before Angel Feather had Gabriel and Hamiel, but now you can play a little bit slower, start grinding out the game, and because your intercepts are massive, you have essentially 5 intercepts on the board. Really, really interesting pick, and if it works, it works. So yeah, congratulations to them. And then this is the Altmile list. Pretty stock standard Altmile list, a bunch of grade 2s that you can tutor, and then playing a pretty interesting engine. So, including the Jewel Knights, Eunice, and Morvidus. So I'm guessing that's like to fuel up Soul, which is a little bit weird, but I guess like, these are replaceable boosters, right? So after you boost, you just return it to hand, Soul Charge 1, you're feeling pretty good. And then also it allows you to recycle your normal units as well. So like, you play a bunch of these one-offs. If you ever need to tutor any of them from the bin, right? You play the units, return it back to deck for the next turn, and then essentially tutor them. So very cool concept in Altmile, something that I probably, would see more in like a game like Pokemon, where you play a bunch of one-offs and then start tutoring them and recycling them with like ordinary rods and stuff. But yeah, very cool to see this concept kind of flow over to a not so overrepresented deck like Altmile. Another list we have, Chaos. So this one is not running Glindios, and to be honest, fair pick, because I think if you're playing in a team format, you're like 66% less likely to see Maiden because, you know, you're divided into 3 slots, and like on a team you can only have, you know, 1 slot being Maiden, and, you know, 1 in 3 is 33%. So, you know, bringing Chaos might be good because, you know, if you play against Leopold, right? Leopold, you just nuke their XLs and then they really can't do much, right? Same with Astropods, you know, you get rid of their, you know, force markers, then it starts to get a little bit weaker. You know, you go into Maiden, you can still lock and do your shenanigans. So very cool, like, pick into this particular metagame. Luard has a lot of trouble into Chaos as well. And the only deck that I guess counters Chaos in a way is probably Anj. It can bypass using Anj's skill to bounce, you know, locked cards. But otherwise, like, there are a lot of decks out there that, you know, can't cope with Chaos, you know, efficiently, you know. You know, Zirconium still auto locks if you have an open circle, and yeah, this is definitely a deck that you still have to worry about, you know. Sometimes, you know, you roll into it and you get rolled. And sometimes people are like, oh yeah, you know, Chaos is pretty easy, but they don't actually test the matchup. You burst this in front of you and you're like, what do I do, right? So sometimes catches you off guard. So very cool. And then the top 8 also had a Lucia list. So I think this was part of the Nexus team that came from 9th and then bubbled 8th or something, or proceeded into 8th or something. Yeah, big respect for playing Lucia, you know, playing a 3-line of the original one, so 2 normals and 1 SVR, focusing on the Venus, you know, 4 Lillians, playing Rainbow Triggers. Yeah, I mean, very, very self-explanatory, to be honest. I think seeing the crits early is nice, but you also want to see front in the late game and essentially roll your opponent out. So sometimes you can manipulate the way that you stack your deck as the game progresses, and then, you know, you get to the bottom and you just chuck 2 fronts and then, yeah, see you later, dude. I'm interested to see what the you know, battle record or tournament record that this guy went. So if you guys, you know, are watching this and you guys are the one playing this, let me know in the comments down below, you know, what your tournament record was, what your sis record and your top cut record was. Well, top record, or top cut you could have won, but then your teammates lost, who knows. But yeah, very, very cool list. Yeah, I think that's like the first of nearly 0 Lucia lists ever since Reverse came out, so very cool to see. Jumping onto Premium, so yeah, there's a lot of spicy stuff here, except maybe for the first team. Guess the Heavy coming first with Highlander, Steam Maiden, and Thavas, probably the most meta lineup you could probably bring. Second was Goon Squad with Gridora, Rising Nova, and the Leaders. Third was Plot Armor with Regalia, Big Belly, and Rising Nova. And then fourth was Wholesome Nexus Boys. Big shout out to Nexus Corps with Gridora, Steam Maiden, and Gurgwin. So few interesting decks, such as this Big Belly deck. This looks very close to the one that Solemn posted on his channel. I can definitely see the Candelaria, you know, anti-Narukami, but I'm not too sure whether you would run this in the current meta game, because, like, you know, I guess Narukami isn't that much of a problem anymore. But I guess also, you know, you can still retire this, create 2 tokens, and feel pretty good, right? And then it still procs the Big Belly skill. So yeah, very cool concept of a deck. Big shout out to Solemn for, you know, publishing this to the world. Very, very cool. And then there was the Gurgwit list. So this list did not run the Holy Shine and did not run Overtrigger. So this deck ran, you know, based on Ultima. And as you can see, there's a lot of like D cards in there. So this one is essentially a Persona Searcher. Very cool. So, you know, you can grab your Gurgits or grab your Percivals, right? If you're riding Percival, you go into another Percival, get your Aglavales, and then, you know, say you have another one, you can ditch for Ultimate Stride. That's like 4 XLs. Pretty cool. You know, 4 XLs, hit 3 crits, and your opponent legit can't do anything. So very cool. And then there's this one order. So CB1, draw 2, choose 2 cards from hand and call them. Yeah, very, very cool. I mean, I guess it like draws you cards, and I guess it's like, you know, if you're committing from hand, then you might as well draw 2 along with it. So, you know, a one-off is pretty nice. You'll find it maybe when you like draw into your stuff. but not as reliably as some of the other decks. But otherwise, very stock standard Gurgwit Percival list. And sometimes, you know, if you can't get to Ultima, you can still kill with this because, you know, you're dropping a bunch of XLs, you're going to like Percival and stuff, and you're going to like Max Slash. You can just roll your opponent out of the game, loop a bunch of Wonder Ezzles, and then yeah, just win like that. So that's the Springfest side of things. So now we're going on to the Vanguard Deluxe that happened in Indonesia, and yeah, flooded with Chronojet except for the one lone Magnolia coming second. So Yuliantus Saputra with Chronojet, Ronaldo Antelis with Magnolia, and then big shout out to WCC Jonathan Haptisms or Jonathan Wibowo with Chronojet, and then fourth was Chris Ardiancia with Chronojet. And I guess we're not going to look at the Jets, but we'll look at the Magnolia list. So this list is pretty interesting, only running 2 inlet, but the counterpart is the GOAT. So the GOAT is kind of pretty much an inlet pulse, except instead of putting it into Soul, you retire it and draw 1. So it, I guess, gives you a little bit more early game to play against Chronojet, but as well as, I guess, filling the slot that inlet would be, right? So you can play this card 1 turn earlier than inlet and still have, you know, the role that inlet provides. You know, playing the Alania to search any of your other stuff, playing this Wolf, I'm guessing it's for Big Shield, and then yeah, a bunch of other stuff, finding like orders and stuff, and then, you know, this ride line plays the Zorga line, and then playing the grade 2 for Magnolia, so you can top call, pretty interesting. Or is it top call or like draw 1 or something? But yeah, not playing the grade 2 to salvage an order, because I mean, you're gonna run through orders anyways. You're essentially plussing 1 off the order, and you might as well like top call once you like get through your deck of orders anyways. Playing two end picks, you don't really need the protection. It's a nice 23 in the back, but no Genosla, which is pretty surprising. I think Genosla is a very impactful card, but I guess if you're playing this, oh no, that's the Blitz order. Pretty interesting. No Genosla, so I guess you're just bashing with like Alpins and stuff. I don't know. I think Genosla just makes decks guard super awkwardly because they have to like save a PG. If something's like 60k, they can't just manually guard it, right? But yeah, very interesting list. No Genosla, but you know, substituting like grade 2s into the inlet slot and still providing the same role. Very cool, very cool. Then we have His Majesty's VGCS, and this was ran by Zistrel and Yellow Card Vanguard, so big shout out to them. Zistrel's doing amazing work over there for his community and his VGCSs, so yeah, big shout out to him. The breakdown: 3 Youthberg, 2 Eva, 1 Minerva, 1 Gravidia, and 1 ARKHITE. ARKHITE seems to be the deck that keeps popping up. And then looking at the top 4, 2 Youthbergs, so Eric S, so that is Vanguard Insider coming first, and then second place was Cheyenne A, third was Ansab K, and then fourth was Morgan F. So Ansab played Eva, and then Morgan played ARKHITE. So again, we're going to look at that ARKHITE deck, and this looks very much more like the deck that I would expect to see. You know, you're playing a bunch of orders, you're playing Robust. Now, I don't know whether Robust is a good pick in this particular deck because you search 2 orders already, right? With your ride line, and then wait, I'm pretty sure you search 2 orders, right? So yeah, this searches an order. Yeah, this searches an order. Yeah, so you're playing 2 orders already, right? And then you're playing 3 Robust. I guess like the good thing about it is that it's a beat stick, but the fact that you're running Robust and then trying to find your 2 other orders, if you hard draw into one of them, then it's like the CB is like kind of wasted. Well, you don't get the opportunity to use the CB, right? But I mean, like, it's still a 23k hitter, 33 on a Persona ride, and yeah, if you don't see the 2 orders, then you know you can still, you know, CB1, grab them, and then deck in your deck, right? Because you just drop the 4 orders, mill out all your, you know, monsters and start hitting triggers, hit your OT on your opponent, and you know, sometimes you win. So yeah, very cool concept of ARKHITE. We saw 2 very different ARKHITE builds, but the concept, you know, remains the same. And then the last one is the Trail Vanguard Challenge Cup Volume 1. So this is held in Japan. This features the new Messiah format. So as you can see, a lot of the top 8 or top 12, so to say, are, you know, filled with Messiahs. So a big portion of Messiah. Chronojet is still, you know, a dominant deck. A little bit of Ebisu here, Youthberg, Buffsagra, and then ARKHITE as well. We're not going to look too much into any of the other decks, probably like look at the first place Messiah list. And one of the interesting things is that it doesn't run Mikani. And a lot of people are looking at Mikani like, oh, you know, you play it for the soul charge, but you know, sometimes you don't need it. But the most important card that you run is the B Hero Girl. So yeah, if you guys are making Messiah, make sure you try to find this girl real quick, because, you know, back in DBT06, you know, sometimes it's hard to find. And it's a crucial card that you will need for Messiahs as well. And yeah, that's pretty much all the results for the past few weekends. I'm gonna try to collab a bunch of results all together and put it out in all in one video instead of like incrementally releasing them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys like this video, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think on the results and how these results will be affected by the ban list that is coming out very, very soon. We saw it on the product stream. A bunch of things got hit, a bunch of things got choice restricted. V is, you know, changing, and Premium got a huge nuclear ban list. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.